Well, hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today I'm here with Brian Krespan. I think he comes to us from the frigid Northeast, very close to Canada.
Very close to
Uh,
Canada.
Very close. Brian and I have known each other for some time. He is a prolific audiobook listener and reviewer. I think you do more than 150 books a year.
Yep.
And I thought it would be great to get your perspective on the industry and a little bit more about you. So thanks for joining us.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me. You are right. I think it's hold on. Let me tell you how cold it is today. It is 11 degrees outside right now.
And you're close to Niagara Falls, correct?
Yeah, I actually live in the town of Niagara, so I'm very, very close. I think I live like 10 minutes, and I've lived here 10 years, and I've only been there maybe 4 times. It's when people come to visit. It's the only time you go. So, I live 10 minutes from a wonder of the world, and I go to it. I mean, I used to live in Erie, Pennsylvania, and Presque Isle was very big there for a lot of people in the area. It's a beach and a bunch of water and on Lake Erie, and I would go like once a year. And there's people like, oh, I drove from Pittsburgh to get there. I drove 3 hours to get there. And I'm like, I lived 8 minutes away from the beach. Like, so yeah,
You tend to take those things for granted.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So it's 11 out, and we got 25 inches of snow a couple days ago. So it's perfect near Buffalo weather for me right now. So
Yeah. You don't mind the cold.
no. No, like I said, I grew up in Erie. We set snow records all the time there. So moving,
Yeah.
and in Niagara Falls, we actually get a little bit less snow because the lake is here and we're like right here. So we just miss most of the lake effect that the city of Buffalo gets and the same stuff that Erie gets. So
Wow. So it got into the 30s last night, and we got winter weather warnings here in Southeast Texas. A little
yeah,
different.
yeah, it's a bit different.
So I want to ask you this: how did you get started uh, with audiobooks? I know you were a reader in
Yeah,
print medium as a young kid, but how did
yeah,
audiobooks begin for you?
that's a great question. So I have no idea what caused me to go, let's listen to something. I don't remember. I remember I was sitting playing, I think probably Madden, and I thought, well, I could listen to a book and actually get through it and be doing something else at the same time. So I thought, well, let's throw The Martian on by Andy Weir, narrated by R.C. Bray at that point. And the rest is kind of history. Like, it was so good that I couldn't believe I had been missing out on it. And like I kind of said, like doing something at the same time was really important at that point too. And I was playing Madden with the sound off. I don't need to know how much I'm beating somebody or how much I'm getting beat by, but it was, really interesting to be able to fly through a book, listen to it, and get all the emotion, get all the things you do in your own head when you're reading, but have it done by a professional, have it done by an actor. So, and R.C. Bray absolutely just killed the narration of that. It was so good that when I found out he was being replaced on it, I actually went out. It should still be over here. Yep. I actually went out and I bought the hard copy of his narration because I wanted to make sure I had it forever. So, so yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And I was already reading in print medium, as you mentioned. I was already reading on my Kindle as well, and reviewing a little bit here and there. And I wrote a beer blog, and I liked writing, and I liked connecting with people in the industry. So I thought I'll do the same with the book blog. I already have enough going on. Why don't I throw more on my plate? So I started the book blog as a book blog, not an audiobook blog specifically, and then as things progressed, I turned it into just an audiobook blog because I have enough time to do that and only that.
And so the genesis of the blog was just you already liked writing, you liked reading, put the two together, and
Yeah,
tell people what you think.
and honestly, I knew enough about like with beer, right? People aren't sure what they like. Some people just don't even know what they think. Like, oh, this tastes like beer. This tastes like an IPA. This tastes like, I can't tell you. Does it taste like, flowers? Does it taste like citrus? Does it taste like pine? A lot of people have a hard time with that. So I was doing a similar thing, and I knew how much breweries enjoyed it. I knew how much, and also knew how much like amateur drinkers enjoyed it. So I thought I knew, not knowing any authors, not knowing any narrators at that point, maybe 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I knew how valuable a review was, or at least I thought I did. And then I met some authors, I met some narrators, and I found out just how valuable those reviews were. So I was glad that I just took that chance and thought, I'll write some reviews and see what happens.
And how many books a week do you go through, and
My
how do you read or listen so fast? Do
it,
you play it on a faster speed?
Yeah, so I try to get so my for this is a personal goal I've never like it's never specifically like out there. I try to post Monday, Wednesday, Friday a review. So I try to get 3 out a week. A lot of that reading is done on the weekends. I do so I work from home as well. So I used to have around an hour to 2 hours a day commute time to Buffalo and from Buffalo to listen. So that was easy to get, you know, a book done every 2 days, basically 2 to 3 days. And then I would do
So
it
you
while I was
froze
doing
up there a
house.
little bit, but you're
Oh, no
saying
worries. I said I
no,
used
that's
to
fine. So
drive.
you were saying you commute.
Yeah, I used to commute to Buffalo for my job, so I had about 1 to 2 hours a day in the car. So I could do probably a book every 2 or 3 days, depending on just the drive. That was really cool. I've been working from home since March of 2020. So I had to find new times to listen because I don't listen while I'm working. I have a hard time multitasking while doing tasks that require me to like think a lot. But I listen while I'm playing video games. I usually play video games 1 to 2 hours a night after my wife falls asleep. I listen while I'm doing the laundry. I don't listen while I'm cooking or while I'm showering. Those are 2 times like my wife likes to listen, but I just can't focus in those times. But I do get most of my reading done probably on the weekends. I probably get 2 or 3 books done on the weekend because I can sit for multiple hours and do something. I'm doing the laundry. I'm doing cleaning, stuff like that. So I have the time there. But then I do listen on a good week. I listen 1 to 2 hours a night, just period. So that's how I get through the books quickly. But you know, and I'm gonna keep my reading preferences quiet here because I know there's a debate on speeding it up or not. But I do know the performance is important, so I will say that part of it.
Sure. So why do you think audiobooks are booming in popularity? I mean, it is the growth area
Yes, it is.
in the book industry.
That's a great question as well. Like I think being inside of it while it's happening, it feels like well, yeah, like I've known this for 4 years. How are people just catching on? But it's a very, I think, kind of what I mentioned. Like you can do it while doing other things, right? You can do it while doing like laundry is so mundane. You don't have to think about it. You're folding clothes. You're throwing stuff in the washer or dryer, that kind of stuff, and your brain just kind of wanders. But if you've got a book on while you're doing that, it is so much nicer. And it is like, I can be putting laundry away while, these two people are attacking each other, or while we're discovering a new planet, or in some cases, and I know nonfiction books are just as popular, I'm learning something. I'm learning a new skill. I'm learning a new task. I'm learning something about myself or something to better my communication with other people. So I think people are starting to grasp the importance of it, and I think that people are also realizing just how darn good the books are. Like that was I got lucky with The Martian because The Martian was a great book and B, a wonderful performance. And it was like, okay, and I've had books that aren't either a great book or aren't a great performance, and I haven't really had many that were neither. But I tell you what, you get a good book with a good narrator, and it's crazy how much your world changes because you're sitting there going, I had no idea. And I think a lot of people are discovering that.
And so you like a lot of different genres. Some people
Mm-hmm.
like to stick in their lane, but if you go to your blog and you look, I mean, they're almost everything.
Yeah.
I think I said in the description here, virtually everything, which
Yeah.
means not everything, but almost. How do you switch from one to the other? Most people have that one or two genres and that's it. You're all over the
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, so I used to just be three. It was post-apocalyptic, science fiction, and thrillers. And if you think about those three, they're very similar. They have very similar tropes. They have very similar things. One of the things I found while doing that was every book felt the same. So if I listened to Josh Guyu's Commune, and then I went into one of your books, while completely different writing styles, completely even just different lengths of books, different narration styles, different narrators, it was still the world's ending. These people are trying to survive. These things are happening. So, it was kind of hard to, and if I didn't write my review of Commune, for example, first, before starting your book or someone else's book, I would then have to remember, was this guy in this book or was he in this other book? So that was one of the reasons that I decided to kind of jump around a little bit. One of the other reasons was I did the same thing with movies. Like I would watch a comedy, then I'd watch a rom-com, then I'd watch a thriller, then I would jump around, and I realized it's easier to A, remember the whole story, and B, it was kind of like a palate cleanser when you're having a nice meal. Like you don't go heavy meat to heavy meat to heavy meat. You go heavy meat to a light salad to something else to kind of move things around. So now I'm, into the romance category, which I didn't expect. That actually came honestly from meeting and hanging out, doing some drunk watching episodes with Kelsey Navarro and Chelsea Stevens, two narrators. They both narrated a ton of romance, and I had never listened to it, and they were like, you love rom-coms, why would you not listen to a romance comedy audiobook? And I gave it a shot, and I loved it. And those, especially getting a romance book in there from really heavy post-apocalyptic or science fiction, the world's ending kind of books, to this lighthearted, I don't care if I know what's going to happen, like Hallmark type book. It's just nice to kind of palate cleanse. It's nice to kind of change gears, and like I said, it allows me to, in my opinion, it allows me to write a better review of each book, because I'm able to remember, yep, this person's from the rom-com, this person's from the post-apocalyptic, this person's from the thriller, if I stack the reviews in a row.
So a lot of people have TBR piles, to be read.
Oh, yeah.
How big is
Oh,
your...
it's huge. It's huge. I don't count it because it's huge. I mean, even behind me, I would say the whole top shelf has been read, because that's Andy Weir and Nicholas Sansbury Smith. You're, I think, in this one of yours is in here. 2 or 3 years are in here. I started getting these book of the month books, which are awesome, which add to my TBR all the time. I've probably audio only. I've probably got easily 500 books without even breaking it. So probably closer to 1,000. And then there's the even worse pile, in my opinion, which is I just saw this book get released in print and in ebook, and there isn't an audiobook. That list is probably 2,500 long, if not longer, of new and old books. There's a book you find that's 15 or 20 years old, and you think, God, how does somebody get the rights to record this? Because I think it would make a great audiobook. I think Raptor Red is a great example of that. I've had it sitting on my shelf for probably 10 years now, and I've never picked it up to read it, but there was an audiobook. I think it was abridged from years ago, and I just was like, no, I'm not picking that up. So, but yeah, probably about 2,000 books total. I would say somewhere in that range. And realistically, I mean, just this week I've got to read 3 or 4 more to make sure I'm either caught up or ahead with my blog. So
the age-old question, I say age-old, as old as audiobooks are, is listening to an audiobook the same as reading an audiobook? People who read only will say that it's not. People who listen say that it is frequently.
Yeah, this is a topic I have had to back off on fighting for on the internet, because it really does bother me, because it feels very elitist of someone who just physically reads a book, because what you're discounting is, I have a friend, Ryan Huey, who is blind. He's part of the blind community. He does a lot in that community and he loves my blog because I make sure that I post new books, and he says his TBR pile has gotten twice as long since he started following me, but he can't physically read a book, but he can listen to a book, and that's the same thing. And I don't have them pulled up or anything, but there's multiple studies saying it fires the exact same parts of your brain. I do think is reading. I think it's considered reading, because if I wasn't listening to it, I wouldn't have read it. And I can go and tell you probably more about it because I listened to it and I was enthralled by the performance of it than most people can that actually sit and physically read a book.
It's incredible to me with audiobooks, how inextricable the narrator becomes from the story.
Yeah, and I get when you have to change a narrator, and I think that's probably the biggest. I guess it's kind of like a faux pas, right? You get a narrator for like 3 books and then you change them. I get why it happens. I get that there's scheduling issues. I get that there's pricing issues. There's a lot of things that go into play. Sometimes it's a publisher issue as well. I get that, but there are times, and I've written probably over 100 reviews that say this person is this main character in the story, right? You'll say, R.C. Bray is Mark Watney, like, because you listen to it and then it gets worse or better with multiple stories, and you've got 7, 8, 9 stories in or books in a story, and the narrator has been the same. It is amazing how much they become the main character. They become, and then you hear them in another book, and you're like, wait, that's not that person. So yeah, for sure, the narrator is unbelievable, especially when you can get them on for longer series like that.
I know in listening to Michael Connelly's Harry Bosch series, if you listen to all of them, the narrator changes several times, and it does take time getting used to that new narrator. What are some hidden gems that you think are some great books that haven't gotten the attention you think they deserve, and that your fans should check out?
All right, you're gonna make me pull my blog up because I don't have a good answer to this off the top of my head. So it got a lot a long time ago, and I started a reread on it more recently, and it's Myra Grant's Feed. And I believe it's called the News Flesh series. There were 3 books and maybe 10 novellas. It was a zombie fiction. I actually picked it up when my friend was having surgery in the hospital. I got it in the hospital store and picked it up and just started reading it. And it's probably more than 10 years old, maybe 15 years old now. Unbelievable, like, what happened. It's kind of funny with COVID going around and with the different vaccinations, different things going on. The opening of the virus was a cure for the common cold that wasn't done being researched, got mixed with I want to say like a flu, some other kind of vaccine, and it ended up causing people to get what they called the Kellis-Amberley virus, and it didn't kill you and you didn't mutate while you were alive, but as soon as you died, you would mutate into a zombie. So it was a really interesting take. I thought her science on it was unbelievably sound. Now, and I say that knowing what's going on now and knowing how much people ignored a lot of things and how much people, went and got toilet paper instead of being safe, that kind of stuff. Like, it's funny. I wanted to reread it because of that, and I reread some of the novellas, and I couldn't believe how well she did it. One of the things she did, and you'll get a kick out of this due to your non-writing career, one of the things that came up was, and this is pre-fake news, this is before that was a coined term, but the news media weren't telling the full story. So they were saying, no, everything's fine. And then there were bloggers and there were writers on the internet that became the news tellers because they were getting the story out faster, which I know still happens today because I know a lot of news comes from Twitter. I know a lot of stuff comes, you'll see like, hey, a fight happened at this thing. Like that concert that had a bunch of people get hurt and I think a couple of people died in it. There was a bunch of stuff on Twitter before it ever got to the news. So it was kind of like an evolution of that, was saying like the news media they don't say anything right. So we're going to get all our news from blogs. So I think just that whole series was really interesting. So I always thought it was Myra Grant, and it's actually a pen name of Shauna McGuire. But Myra Grant's News Flesh series, I think, is probably the most hidden gem. And I think a lot of people have read it. I think a lot of people like it, but it's old enough now that I think people should probably revisit it and enjoy it.
Sure. And what about something that is more recent that you've read, maybe just recently blogged about, that you think this is really good, surprisingly good, and it needs more attention?
Yeah. So thank God I just pulled my blog up. So I read a book called The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot Schreifer. I apologize if I said that incorrectly, but it was science fiction about two, I want to say they were 17-year-old boys in space, and they were supposed to be like humanity's last chance to be safe. Basically, they were on this like mission to go somewhere, and there's a lot of unbelievable twists and turns in it that I basically can't say anything more about. But it's It's probably one of the first books that I picked up randomly. I actually got it from a recommendation from somebody on Twitter. I had it in my to-be read pile. It wasn't something I had gotten from someone or had reached out to a publisher for. It was just one that I picked up on my own. And it was probably one of the most shocking and genuinely, like, every time like a thing would change, I would go like, I don't know how this is going to end. I have zero idea. So yeah, so it's called The Darkness Outside Us. And that was released, I think, last year. And I just reviewed it January 3rd of this year.
And what do you do when you're not listening to books or blogging? Tell people a little bit about yourself to the extent that you want to share it.
Yeah. So the reason I even make the blogs, the reason I do that kind of stuff is just I've been doing web design. I've been doing graphic design, photography. You know, I'm one of those people that like, I like to pick up a hobby and, you know, I don't learn it all the way. So I like to do a lot of things. So I did that. And then in my everyday kind of job, I work in and around the advertising industry, more on the tech side of it. I'm a product manager there. So my job is to kind of interface between the end customer and the engineer. So the famous scene when the one guy gets fired in Office Space where he says, I'm a people person, damn it. When he explains that he has to talk to the customer, get the requirements from the customer, and go talk to the engineers because the engineers can't talk to the customer. That's actually my job. It's a funny scene, but I feel it every time he says it. So that's kind of my day job. And then, you know, I'm big into video gaming. I've got my Xbox literally right next to me right here. I play Xbox with my buddies, so I play shooters, I play racing games, I play sports games, RPG. I play about as wide as I read. I play pretty much every genre you can think of. I'll get kind of lost in like a Fallout or any of those kind of games, so I try not to dive into them as often, because when I do that, I can't listen to my audiobooks at the same time. But if I play Madden or Forza, I can drive and listen to an audiobook, which is what I was doing going to work and stuff. So I do that. I'm a big craft beer guy. I have my beer fridge on this side. So I like drinking craft beer, talking to, you know, I had a great example. Here's one I had last night when I was playing my game for Mortalis Brewery, not too far from my house. So I think that's that's a lot about me. Honestly, my interesting fact about me when I'm doing work stuff is always that I read 150 plus books a year, which floors people because it is a lot of books and it is, you know, it is a major part of my life. So, you know, it's kind of, that part of the life is kind of entwined in everything else I do. I like to travel as well. I actually try to go places with my dad once a year, but with COVID, we haven't done it in 2 years now. So we're hoping to play in something this year, but hasn't happened yet.
What is the most unique response you've gotten to a review from either a reader, an author, or a narrator? And I say unique so that it's not like the best or worst.
Yeah, unique. Honestly, and I do work with some of the publishers. I can request books from almost every publisher out there. Every time a publisher interacts with it, I always feel pretty special because a lot of them are big. Like, you know, I work with Tantor, who is big in the sense they release an unbelievable amount of books every month. But I've worked with Brilliance. I've worked with who's an Amazon company now, which I didn't realize. You know, but I think those are always like, it never stops being fun when I get even just a retweet. Podium is great. Podium is probably one of the better ones at social media in general, but those are probably the most rewarding to me, because it just feels like, you know, it's going to be sent. Like, I think Podium picked up one of my reviews and actually put it in their newsletter, and I had 3 or 4x my normal you know, traffic. But most unique, I think, might be people that I didn't know knew me or knew of me. I think those are always the really fun ones. Like, oh, I didn't know you were going to read my book, or I didn't know you were going to pick up my friend's book, or those things. And, you know, people who are honored to have me review it as much as I'm honored to be reviewing it, I think is always the most unique in my opinion.
Fantastic. Is there anything else you want to add before we go? Anything I didn't think to ask you that you really wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I think there's one, because I actually wanted to talk to you about this, and we can talk after, because I think it's something you and I should talk about. But You didn't ask me what my favorite weird genre was, because there are a bunch of like subgenre, I guess I'd call it. So,
Okay.
I would call it climate fiction or cli-fi, and it's a genre that I think not a lot of people write in. And I also think with climate change, I think it's probably you have to do it really well to not have naysayers from political gamuts on it. But climate fiction, basically think of like Twister the movie or The Day After Tomorrow. Those kinds of movies turned into books. So I've read a few, maybe four or five I can think of off the top of my head, and they've all been just knock my socks off good, because I think when we read post-apocalyptic, it's always either you know, a false flag, or it's we're being attacked, or it's, we're falling apart from the inside out. It's never the world is ended because of storms, or the world is ending, or that kind of stuff. So I think that's something that I think is it's a genre I always look for, and it's a genre that I have a very hard time finding books in. So and there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I just read one last year that was done, 20 or 200 or 300 years in the future after things, hit the fan. So that was interesting. But I'm actually reading one right now by Bruce Sterling, which I think was written in 992 or something, called I think it's called Heavy Weather. Yeah, Heavy Weather. And it has a Crichton-esque feel to it. It's a little bit more bogged down in some of the scenes, and I can't tell. My brain keeps kind of jumping to typical post-apocalyptic, where like these are the only people left, versus there are still cities and metropolises, but they're in the Great Plains, and they're looking for an F6, the coveted doesn't exist F6 tornado, which is really interesting. So it has like a Twisters feel, it has a Day After Tomorrow feel, and then you still kind of find out there's other people out in the world. So I think that's a genre that I like a lot, that there aren't a lot of books written in. So I just wanted to mention it, because it's something that I don't get to talk about very often, and I think it's something that I think more people should write in.
Cli-fi.
Yeah, cli-fi. Yep.
Cli-fi. Well,
Yeah,
now you've given me an idea.
That's the reason I wanted to talk to you about it. I know,
no,
it was. I was like, I know. I just in the most recent review I wrote for you, I think I said it was somewhere around like 32 of your books that I've read, and I don't know how many you actually have. I feel like it's like around 40, because I know there's one series I haven't read yet that I have on audio that Kevin Pierce did. But you've jumped around into some thrillers, and you've jumped into even the EMP. You hadn't done that yet. So that like, I was just like, I think it's another end of the world situation that I think you did a little bit. You definitely did it in the wow, I can't think of the name of the series. The one where you did the different things happening to the same people. So yeah, you did a little bit there, and you definitely tried to. The flood one is the one that sticks out the most to me, because of like the scenery and the imagery you were able to put into that.
Yeah, from the storm.
Yeah, the scenery and the imagery in that really stood out to me, because of like the stop sign and where the water was on it and that kind of stuff. And I know that was from you seeing like storms as a reporter, but like it was just interesting. And I think there's a bigger story to be told there that I think a lot less people are trying to write, because you have to get the science semi right. You can be a little bit like, you can be science fiction about it and be fictional, but you have to get the science close enough where people are believing it. So yeah, but that's the only thing I can think of.
I'm taking notes.
That's fine.
Well, Brian,
we can chat
I really
after.
appreciate you taking the time this morning. It's always great talking with you. And you can always go to briansbookblog.com, where he posts 2 or 3 new reviews every week, and it runs the gamut of all kinds of genres. So anybody who loves listening to audiobooks, check out Brian's book blog. I also put up his Twitter handle, which is right there on the screen right now, Brian's under. And have a great weekend, Brian.
You too. Super nice to chat with you, and hopefully we'll do it again soon. Thanks, Tom.
Awesome.